Welcome to another episode, a special episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast entitled Towards Developing a Caribbean Thought Academic Audio Journal. This is part one of the series entitled Caribbean Thought Lecture Series Part 1. This episode begins the lecture series at the Jamaica Theological Seminary on Caribbean thought towards developing a Caribbean thought academic audio journal. This is a video episode, this is an audio episode uploaded from the class Zoom audio recording as I'm teaching the course via an online face-to-face module while here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA. There is also a bonus episode which can be seen in video via the Spotify platform. Now, this course focuses on and explores the diverse currents on Caribbean thought, which have influenced the development of Caribbean societies from colonialism to independence and beyond. It traces the history of resistance and examines the quest for equality and the challenge of defining Caribbean identity within the post-colonial and neoliberal globalized world, not just within the geographic sense of the word, but also in terms of a diasporic sense. It challenges the students to develop and express their own critical thinking as a Caribbean people within a unique way that helps to realize further the hope of a free, independent Caribbean that is bursting with hope and opportunity. But the course understands that it requires that students begin to critique and explore their own thinking in deeply esoteric and critical ways that deconstructs history and philosophy. At the end, they will create their own Caribbean thought, leading to a Caribbean academic journal of young academics and future scholars. The course will make you estranged from self, but it is geared towards getting you out of your bubble and to consider issues that will make you uncomfortable. In retrospect, an interview I did with the World Education Services West explored ways that we can prepare students for the global world, especially those coming from the global south. That means moving from the local and turning to the global or glocal, as we are global citizens. And by the way, the course might be entitled Caribbean Thought, but it's more than just Caribbean thought, meaning just the Caribbean. As I said earlier, looking at looking at it in a geographic sense, because Jamaicans can be considered Americans because we are part of the Americans, are we not?
No, you guys are below the Americans.
I mean, no, okay, we don't talk. That's not politically correct. We don't talk in those terms. Below, we're not below anyone.
You guys are
The Caribbean. The Caribbean people.
is not a part of the United States.
I never said the United States is not America. In fact, on the American continent.
Excuse me?
Right. The US is not America. The US is one of the American continents. It's one of the American places on the continent. It's on the American continent, the mainland of America.
Excuse me.
And notice, by the way,
excuse me.
no, this is very important. Hold on, this part of our lecture series. Hold on. Notice you just said something. You said mainland.
Yes.
You said mainland, suggesting that there's also An island, yes, and all mainlands have islands. What are the islands of the
You
mainland?
say Jamaicans can.
All mainlands have islands. What are the islands of the mainland? Jamaica, the Caribbean. Anyways, the course surveys the history and philosophy of the Caribbean, the ways in which the Caribbean has emerged as a society in the shadow of colonialism and emergence of neoliberal globalization. It examines the central ideological currents of 20th century political thought in the region and covers broad topics such as colonialism, nationalism, Pan-Africanism, socialism, Marxism, feminism, democratic socialism, neoconservatism, neoliberalism, globalization, and deconstructivism, critical race theory, strategy, and foundations of knowledge and the hegemony of faith, economic inequality, and poverty. Quite a mouthful. Yes, it is. Now, among the thinkers that will be considered throughout the course are Marcus Garvey, George Padmore, C.L.R. James, Frantz Fanon, Homi Bhabha, Walter Rodney. Who is that? You said?
Maurice Smith.
Are you one of the thinkers? Walter Rodney, Fidel Castro, Michael Manley, Edward Seaga, Bob Marley, Kamal Brathwaite, Edward Glissant and the Negritude movement, Mike Davis, Nelson and Novella Keith, Stephanie Black, Jamaica Kincaid, Garnet Roper, Rex Nettleford, Dana Berry White with her book, What's the Price for a Pound of Flesh?
Yes.
Which also, and well, you might say, what does that have to do with the Caribbean? What does Dana Berry book have to do with Caribbean? And she talks about the because it talks about as we get ready to go into the lecture, you're going to hear me talk about that when you look at the Caribbean, it will help to understand the black position. And Dana Berry White talks about the black position, the very same position that is part of the experience of Caribbean. So the themes will be drawn from a selection of contemporary newspaper columnists, talk show hosts, and the ideas behind the major international agencies and institutions which have shaped post-independent policies. The selection of thinkers and social movements to be examined will vary with each semester. Now, this particular class is we'll look at, of course, is the introduction. We may briefly delve into privilege, power position, and the need for critical thinking. We'll look at Caribbean thought, ideology, and philosophy, looking at the foundations of knowledge as well, referencing Homer, the Odyssey, the Iliad, so on and so forth, the Phaedo, Plato, and Socrates, Ian Baruma's Orientalism and Occidentalism. Now, we did not complete the first class of the lesson plan. So this particular class is part 1, and then we'll pick up with part 2 of this particular lesson plan of the class. This is the Neoliberal podcast, and I am Ronaldo McKenzie, host and creator of the Neoliberal podcast, but also an adjunct professor at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, where I am also a graduate. I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. And I wrote a book on neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, poverty, and resistance. My second book, Neoliberal Globalization Reconsidered, will be out shortly, and we will have contributions from Professor Emeritus Dr. Martin Oppenheimer, who is also working on reviewing the book with me, and is also making some contributions in terms of he's also editing and peer reviewing the book, so that provides a great opportunity. We use these books are utilized when we study colonialism, Pan-Africanism, post-colonialism, Caribbean thought, Caribbean philosophy, economics, globalization, so on and so forth. I am looking forward to delving into this particular series with you. Stay tuned for the ride. It promises to be exciting, esoteric, and deep as we seek to develop a Caribbean thought academic journal. We are back online. We are back online.
Sir, where are the rest of students?
I just got back. I didn't even send the invite yet. And I saw people come in. Oh wait, admit all. Let me put admit all. I need to adjust it so that everybody who is
Okay, sir.
everybody in admit all. Nobody okay. Admit all. I need to set that. All right, guys. If you guys know of any students who is not on, that just you can if you tell to them, that would be great. I sent an email. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. We won't have this problem again. I just had to I was trying to connect my Zoom that I created through my JTS email to connect it, because I was told that we have to first add an activity and then link it through our Zoom. I've been doing I spent all day trying to do that. I waste my day today was wasted doing this and back and forth with JTS online trying to get this up and running. So, and I couldn't be bothered, so I created my own thing, and that was basic. So now I had to drive and get my card and change some fundings and pay for a pro account just now, which in order for this to work, because I did not want to miss this class. The first class is usually a very important class. It's a very important class. And but anyway, we'll be able to get through as much as we can. A couple of minutes. I usually take breaks, so I guess we won't take any breaks. We'll just go straight to the class. We'll just go straight through. There's still some students who are not in as yet. As soon as the students are back, we will have them. 13 students waiting for the students to join us. Okay, so it's 7:25. We only have an hour and a half, and that's good. So we're gonna use 30 minutes to finish the. Okay, so we're gonna spend the next as I said to you, the first class is introduction, getting to know the student. No, it's not the 40 minutes Zoom. This is the pro version Zoom. Okay, as of now, I went and purchased the pro Zoom just now. I was trying not to have two, so now I have two Zooms. One JTS that is pro and another one that is pro. So I was trying to merge it as one, but then create a new one through the JTS account, but that didn't work either. So I had to create a whole new one through my JTS email. But we won't have the problem that we had before. We have a pro. So we're good, we're large, we're ready. Now, we will start I think people are slowly, I think we're missing some students. We still have about 3 more students that's not on. 3 more students that's not on. But I was making a very important, the first class, as I said to you, this particular class is getting to know the students, getting to know the resources that you have available to you. I said to you, the course outline is not set in stone. You never set a course outline in stone. You never do that. Because a course is to be facilitated towards the student's strengths and weaknesses. So I have to understand you. We have to understand each other. Understand your professor, understand the students, understand your peers. You guys are going to be working in groups, understand the people in group. And that is very important. That is very important. To be understanding each other so that we can move forward in an effective way with an understanding, because we know people's strengths and weaknesses. That's very, very important. That's one of the things I learned while at Georgetown. I'm doing a teaching course at Georgetown, and to be honest, as you grow, you continue to learn. Knowledge is not static. I mean, the United Church in the US has, as one of its principles, God is still speaking. Because if God is than that which nothing greater can be conceived. If God is than that which nothing, we conceive of God as the omnipotent. We conceive of God with omniscience. We conceived of God as being omnipresent. We conceive of God as being ultimate. In other words, God is beyond us. We try to make sense of God. But God, And the understanding of the ultimate is vast. It's beyond us. But we try to make sense of God with our milieu. But do you know that God communicates with us God, who is all intelligent and all knowing, he understands us and he communicates to us based on who we are. Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. That's what we've said. Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. And so it's very important that as you begin to, as you chart your way through life and chart your way through this course in a JTS, it's very important that, because, you know, I learned some years ago, life is about people and how people relate. Life is about people and how people relate. Without people, there is no life. The relationship that exists is facilitated by community. What is it that facilitates facilitates relationship? Communication. Okay? And of course, we talk about effective communication. So communication facilitates this human dynamic, facilitates the interplay and the exchanges that happen between people. And when that happens, life is happening. Because remember, life is about people and how people relate. So when you think about Caribbean thought suggests the Caribbean, and it also suggests thinking, okay? A particular kind of thinking. What kind of thinking? You know, but we will get into that. So this particular class today is, I want us, and even beyond, and this week, because when you think of a course, you don't think of a day. You think of it in terms, if it runs from this online course, this is the first week. So this first week is introductions, learning about the course, understanding who are the students in my course. You know, when people go to, usually when we go to academia, we go into a classroom, it's about just learning the paper, what's on the paper, trying to understand what's the course and on the paper. No, it's going to be, and I said to you, I sent an email, I made about 9 or 10 changes to the course outline, because as I learn about the students and so on and so forth, and also what's going on in society. And what I believe that as students, you guys should be aware of. Say, for example, the issue of immigration is a major issue in the US, in the Americas, not in the US. And I'm going to ask you a question. If I ask you, is Jamaica, is the Caribbean considered, I say to people, is Jamaica considered, is a Jamaican man, a Bayesian man, I say Lucian man, is he an American? Is he an American? Because is he an American? And I say to you, sometimes we had a limit. Sometime in the past, we had limited, well, I believe that I had a limited understanding of American, because it was believed that the Caribbean is the Caribbean Sea. Yes, and then America is America. When you think of America, think of just the US. Some people think about Canada and the US. And some people may even go further as thinking about Latin America, Central America, okay? And then there are those who, as you continue to read and to engage people and to travel the world and understand all things, you realize, Caribbean can also be considered America. We're part of, not in terms of a particular country, not in terms of country, okay, but in terms of geography. In terms of geography, many people don't realize that if you were to look at the geography, and we will get a chance to do that. If you look at the Caribbean, look at the map. If you look at the map of the world and you look at how the world is constructed, the continent of the world, you have mainlands, and then you have the offshoot from those, the offshoots or the extend, whatever that extends. Say, for example, if you drop water or ink, if you were to have an ink and it splash or if it rains in color, if you notice, if you splash something against a hard surface, it splatters and it leaves drops all over the place. Those would be like the islands. You have the main land, and then you have the creation of a main geographic content surrounds it. It's the offshoot. So the offshoot of the American continent would be the Caribbean islands that surround it. But of course, there are islands all over the world. Islands, when you think about islands, islands aren't just in the Caribbean. You have the Asian islands. You have Asians, all the Alaskan islands as well. You have islands all over the world, and you notice that many of these islands are offshoots of mainlands. So the Caribbean islands, we are part of the we're part of the Americas. Just so you know, we are part of the Americas. And we'll talk about that some more, because as we go further, when we start to define Caribbean, okay? And we talk about the symbiotic relationship that exists between the Americas and the Caribbean, okay? The symbiotic relationship that exists between Americas and the Caribbean. And of course, you talk about the dynamics. You talk about the dynamic of diaspora, which is facilitated by brain drain, so on and so forth. So within the whole idea of life being about people and how people relate, when we approach Caribbean thought, we are approaching it within that particular milieu, or within that particular understanding or frame, understanding that life is about people and how people relate, and this relationship is facilitated by communication. And what is communication? Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. Communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. Now notice I say what was the monopoly. What was the monopoly? Because society changed. The dynamics of society and societies, and the dynamics, in other words, how people relate to each other, whether through privilege or power, okay? Or whether through equity that is enacted by diversity. We must understand that the relationship that exists between people is facilitated by communication. And communication can be, and we say that communication is to make popular, to popularize, okay? To make it popular, to make it everywhere. What was the monopoly? So if I share with you, so the information I'm going to share with you, I have it in my head. It's not, I have monopoly, I have control of a particular information.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, quick question. So Jessica is in the waiting room. She's been asking for a while.
Thank you. I will adjust the settings. I have to probably go and just settings, I think, so that everybody once you have the link, you should be able to join the class. I apologize about that. But so so communication is to make popular what was the monopoly. Okay, so when we think about communication in those ways, I was saying we're talking about control. And one of the things that we're going to talk about, when you think about Caribbean, you think about control. About Caribbean, one of the words that comes to mind is colonialism and post-colonialism. What does it mean? What is the word? When you say colonial, what does it mean? To colonize is to dominate. To colonize is to control. Now there are systems, okay, or strategy, or you have to set up a particular system in order to operate a particular thing. So you think of systems or systematic things that creates dynamics in the world. And I said, some time ago, I told some students in the previous Caribbean thought class that I study strategy at Georgetown. I read the archives. As a doctoral student, you're exposed to archives, and you are exposed to things that many people don't have put their hands on. And one of the courses I hope that JTS will have is a course called strategy. Okay, say for example, people take the world for granted. People think, and I say to people, that is why it's important for you to study society. And in order to study society, Caribbean thought, when you look at this particular course, Caribbean thought, you're actually studying society. You're studying society. You're studying the people within the Caribbean and those that extend from it. You're looking at, and when you study something, you're studying patterns. Academics, like yourselves, people at the collegiate level, what makes us
what separates us from other thinkers and students and scholars at this level is that we are looking at patterns systematically. Okay, we're looking at patterns, and that's one of the ways you develop your critical eye. You look at the patterns that exist and how it changes. You look at what pertains and how it doesn't pertain anymore. So it's very important that so we're studying society because we're studying people, and we're studying people. Remember, life is about people and how people relate. What facilitates this? Communication. What is communication? To make popular what was the monopoly. Now, if it was the monopoly, it suggests control. Okay, because whoever controls the narrative, say for example, you look what's going on in Russia, look what's going on in China, yes? In fact, look what happened here in the Caribbean, where slaves weren't supposed to be. And the second book that I have, I dedicated to my dad, and I'm going to read the dedication page to you, but I say he was only supposed to have a 9th grade education. My father was born in 1944 in Jamaica, died in 2011. His education went as far up to the grade 9 at first. That's all he was supposed to have, yet he was supposed to raise a family, have a career, have an education. Feed his family, not necessarily an education. And have an education up to the grade 9, where he can work in the fields probably, where he can continue to do agriculture, or maybe work in servitude, okay? Or probably do hard labor, or whatever the case, whatever the thing is. If you look at how, when they brought slaves, and as I said to you, this is an introduction class. So we're interested. Many of the things that I'm discussing, we will delve into it from the second class all the way up to the final class systematically, and you will have lecture notes and I have lecture notes for you. I actually created lecture notes for today, but I'm moving beyond that. But I want you to understand the code. Remember, again, let's start from where we are. Life is about people and how people relate. What facilitates this relationship? In other words, life does not exist without people. But life does not exist without relationship. And remember, we say that life is what you make it. Again, life is what you make it. When you start, we're going to do something called the foundations of knowledge. And looking at Homer, yes, and looking at the Odyssey. And I grew up in Jamaica, and I did this course, liberal study. And if I could find that book, let me see if I can find that book for you. By Homer. Can't find it. The Odyssey and the book called the Iliad. That's part of Greek mythology. The word myth does not mean fake or false. It has evolved to take on that terminology for people who want to establish privilege and position, and they want So the word myth was never myth. Myth was a very important word. Myth is actually a very important word. Myth means something serious. Myth means a kind of truth, a kind of logic. And later on, as we look at Caribbean thought, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is, I know you guys do ethics. And I was looking at the courses in this department. I know you guys do ethics. I know you guys do critical thinking. That's one of the courses. And I know you guys do media or communications. But this course, we will delve into critical thinking. What is critical thinking? It is thinking about thinking and thinking that challenges you. Okay? It is thinking about thinking and rethinking what was previously thought. Okay? Because when you realize that life is what you make it, that's very important. Life is what you make it, and life is about people and how they relate. And to the relationship between the North, the global North and the global South, the relationship between the Black and the brown and the white man, the relationship between peoples in the society, and what that relationship looks like, or the dynamic of that relationship, what that relationship looks like, is facilitated by other conditions. Okay, so this is very important. So you have to do some critical thinking. Yes, you have to. And of course, one of the things that we do in this course is we watch a lot of film. You will watch several films, Life and Death, 12 Years of Slavery. I have never recommended 12 Years of Slavery to the class, but I was reviewing the online portal and I saw that in previous years they did walk through 12 Years of Slavery. I believe that things should change. I believe that as people grow, as people evolve, what you did in 2015, you shouldn't be using the same material. Maybe you should use it to support.
Excuse me, sir.
Present material. Yes.
Nadia has her hand up.
Nadia, sorry.
Yes,
Nadia.
yes, sir. It's just to ask that you let in Sean. He's in the waiting room.
There we go. Sorry. I need to give somebody a privilege to be able to do that. One of the things in this class, I need probably an assistant or someone who will help to facilitate some of these things. But so where was I?
Sir, I'm still catching up to your train of thought, sir, because I joined late.
I know we are looking about the Caribbean thought is about people and how people which addresses the dynamics in society, and that life is what you make it. And if life is about people and how you relate, and life is what you make it, there are those, yes, who privilege a particular life and privilege a particular position. So life over time has evolved on a particular dynamic, which places people within a particular position, so that the way that they relate with each other, the way that they relate to each other is shaped by that historical evolution, of how those who choose to make it. Yes, and I was talking about the Odyssey and the Iliad. Many of you may not, we grew up in Jamaica, we're not exposed. I was not exposed to Greek mythology. I was not, and I'm going to tell you that. I was not exposed to Greek mythology. There are some ideas we have about Greek mythology, but then you realize when you start to study the foundations of knowledge and the hegemony of faith, you start to realize, wow, so much of Greek myth, or what we call myth, is not necessarily myth. I want you to know, to reshape your thinking. Go back and look at what myth is. Really look at what myth is. But when you study myth, please remember that when people speak, they speak from a school of thought. So when you read, you have to read, I talk to people, you read widely. You read one author that says one thing, read another author that's challenged that, and then come to a position. Yes, that's very important. Okay, so read. So we probably going to loosely look at myth, but looking at myth and looking at the earliest information that we have of society, the earliest information that we have of society will help us to facilitate a particular position as it relates to humanity and where we're coming from. Because every civilization and every society, whether they begin with an oral tradition, and that tradition, an oral tradition of all things, but it starts from Homer, and I was trying to find my book. It's called the Iliad. I cannot find the Iliad. You don't have to read it, but I started reading the Iliad. I started reading Greek mythology, and I studied the civilization. I started studying the foundations of knowledge, looking at where our knowledge of all things, where does it originate? And if life is about people and how people relate, and people have sought privilege, then you realize that, wow, over time, people have sought to privilege certain positions so that they can realize profit, so that they can advance themselves over other people. And we talk about race being a pseudonym.
Sir, are you hearing me?
That race is a creation. It was created in the 1600s. Race. There was no such thing. There was no idea of black and white, and there was no concept of that.
Sir?
Yes.
Sorry, I have to keep screaming because I don't know if you're hearing me or not. My
Go ahead, yeah.
Speaker goes in and out. But you were asking where the earliest knowledge comes from, and I was just going to ask if you are referring to the Bible or something else.
But that's great. Listen, this class, you say anything. I'm happy that you interjected just now. Because when you study the foundations of knowledge from the patristic period, or before the patristic period, or before the Middle Ages, the patristic period, or Aristotle, but before that, to the early church fathers, or before Augustine and so on, and you find Even before that, you have Greek myth, and by this is not myth. You have several ideas about God and about society and about life that pertains. And all of that evolved over time. You remember when we talk about epochs and civilization, from one civilization to Greco civilization, Egyptians and the Greco civilization, and we talk about the Persians before that, yes? We talk about these civilizations, and one civilization fall and another rise. We talk about feudalism, yes, and serfdom. Talk about capital, and all of these morph into different. All of these isms and schisms, and all of these civilizations is based on a dynamic interplay of human beings. Go ahead.
I can't tell if you're hearing me or not, because the microphone isn't lighting up when I speak sometimes. But like you're talking about, I think you're still going back into, because I was actually watching a video last night on the intertestamental period, and it was talking about the different civilizations that rise and fell in between in between that time frame. But what the guy was showing us, he was actually giving us like he was showing us on the map how Israel developed, and how essentially other than the Garden of Eden, like when Abraham was taken from how, the different civilizations came up from that. And I know the Greek civilization was one of them. So wouldn't you say then still it's all still pointing back to the Bible?
The Bible was not the first. The Bible is one of the newest books. And the Bible is not just one book. The Bible is a compilation of several different books. And what happened is that what we call the early church fathers, a group of men, church fathers, we call them, okay? But people put value and premium on things based on how it speaks to our own privileged positions and consciences, okay? But we call them church fathers, but these men, and Augustine was not originally part of that group, but when they saw what he had written, they said, oh, this is sweet. We should include this. The confession, we should morph this into the scriptures. We should morph this into something deep. But the point I'm getting at, there were other writings, and we're going to talk about this later on in the class, and we won't get to everything in this class because this class is a 2200 level course. It's a 200 level course. And because it's a 200 level course, some of the concepts and some of the things I can't get into. If we have a Caribbean Thought 2 and Caribbean Thought 3, then yes, we can now unpack this course so that we talk about this thing systematically. But one of the things that I'm hoping that JTS will offer is the foundations of knowledge, a course called Foundation, because you'll get to understand that there are writings that exist way beyond the Bible. And many of you know that already. But when you study the scriptures, when you study the writings, they mirror that, but the themes differ based on writing. Say, for example,
are you referring to like the apocrypha, like things that weren't included in the Bible? Are you referring to like the other manuscripts?
No, there were things that there are writings about the
other civilizations,
about the foundations of civilization from thousands of years before the Bible, and so, but various men. You have the Jews came up, and you have the Muslims came up with the Quran, and I think I have it here. The Jews came up with their Judaism and their.
Oh, okay, I understand what you're saying.
So what I'm saying is that every
Christianity is like Judo-Christianity because it branched off from Judaism. But I know that, like, for example, when they found the what was it? Those manuscripts that they found in the cave, those are some of the earliest manuscripts, and they confirm the Jewish writings.
Okay, but what the point am I talking about? The point I'm making, yes, fine, writings, but the writings, the literature that we have, the knowledge that we have about all things, they come from somewhere, okay? And society influenced the writings. And I say to you, life is what you make it, and that life is about people and how people relate to each other, and people privilege themselves and their position and find certain writings and information that support their privilege.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
I understand now.
Right. So
I understand.
So you talk about, but we are going to delve into some of these concepts as we go on. This is an introduction to the course, and I started talking off tangent because of what Jaloy had said earlier, talking about what he wants to do, and I said, Caribbean thought is about lifting up issues of human ethics and human value. Human value and ethics, of course, it's a lifestyle of people and how people relate to the issues of ethics and human value. There are people who privilege their position. Okay, in other words, we talk about slavery, and now you move away from slavery, but you still have the black position. There's still racism, there's still discrimination. Okay, there's still terrorism. There is still there are still suicide bombers. Yes, in other words, there are still people who have an understanding of self in relation to others, and there are people who privilege a particular idea about self over others. Okay, but men have always privileged themselves when you study the foundation of knowledge. From the very foundation of knowledge, even with the stories, when you start to read the Odyssey and the Iliad, yes, and you start to read Plato in the Phaedo, when you start to read, what's the book that I just read? When you start to read Orientalism and Occidentalism, written by Ian Baruma, yes, Ian Baruma, called The West in the Eyes of Its Enemies. The West, and you'll see this, the West in the eyes of its enemies, Occidentalism and Orientalism. Those are very important words, especially if we're formerly colonized people. That word is important, Occidentalism and Orientalism. Okay, caricatures and beliefs that the West have about the East, as again, caricatures and beliefs that the East have about the West. Okay. Yes.
Sorry, I keep interjecting, but just because you're saying some things, and I had a question. All right. Do you think that in Christianity there are martyrs, people that died for the cause of their faith? Do you think that it is fair to judge Muslims for doing the same? Because you had touched on suicide bombers, I think, or something.
Yeah.
Because you were talking about the different aspects and how people identify. So do you think that it is fair to judge that religion? Because essentially, isn't that the same thing that Christianity is doing?
So,
go ahead, I love it. Go.
If I can talk about respond to Jessica. Ms. Cohen, all right, so remember for the Muslims, even though they do bomb themselves, but what they're doing, they're bombing other persons as well. They're not only bombing themselves alone. Now, Christians get beaten and get killed for their faith, but Muslims are literally suicide plus also murder, because they're killing other persons with them. So it's not them alone that dies when they do the suicidal bombing and all that. You understand? So that is not. I don't think that would be the same as a Christian dying for their own faith, for the Christian faith.
All right, that's an excellent point. I was looking at it from the perspective of being like they're both martyring themselves for their faith, not necessarily the aspect of them possibly taking others with them, but the cause is the same, that they're dying for what they believe in.
Well,
from that aspect.
Okay, first of all, we won't generalize. Not all Muslims believe the same thing, and there is, and as we talk about dynamics, there is dynamics. The word dynamic is very important. There are dynamics of faith. There are various branches or denominations of Christianity, and there are various beliefs. Not all Muslims believe in terrorism, but they die for their faith. There's some believe who they will die for their faith, but there is those who believe that they should proselytize, because faith is a personal matter, and no one faith is more important than another faith. But of course, persons who are of a particular faith, some faith, feel as though they have the right faith, and again, the word privilege, privileged position. And so they believe they have the right faith over the other faith. So the issue of, so there are those, so not, I don't believe, no, there isn't anything wrong with challenging people's faith. Of course, there are people who tried, Kyrie Irving tried to challenge the Jewish faith recently, and he was derided. I mean, for those who watched sports or what was happening recently when they called Kyrie Irving an anti-Semitic. They said he was anti-Semitic because he believed that black people were the real Jews, or he promoted something on his Facebook or Twitter media saying that the real Jews were black people, and when they penetrated Africa, they took away their culture, their tongue, and as a group of people took on Jewish idea, the Jewish name. Okay, and so over time, just as if you study Egyptology, if you study Kemetic spirituality, which is part of Egyptology, okay, and within a particular period in Egypt's history, you find Europe and England had dominated Egypt, and colonized Egypt, and took their writings, took their discoveries as their own. If, for example, the term Pythagoras theorem was invented by a black man, but of course, you never know that. You thought Pythagoras was an Italian. Okay, but then you learn over time that his assistant was black and he was the one that. But so I am saying all of this. I said all of this is that there are those people who believe that the history was taken away from them. So the issue then some people. So I have written in an article saying that nothing is wrong with people challenging other people's faith. It becomes a matter of apologetics. It is a matter of theology and a matter of apologetics. But what we have is that some people in some societies do not believe that their ideas should be challenged, and so they come up with beautiful words such as anti-Semitic, okay, and outlaw, and so you cannot challenge those faiths. But the thing is, faiths are if we are human beings and we're striving for truth, nothing is wrong with challenging someone's faith. And just so you know, not all Muslims believe in terrorism. Not all Muslims are suicide bombers, and and of course Christians die for their faith. When we say when Christians die for their faith, how are they dying for their faith? At again, how are Muslims dying for their faith? I mean, but there are people who believe strongly about their faith and will go as far as to die, but doing what? They believe that they should commit terrorism or do like what they did on January 6th when they stormed the U.S. Capitol. Is that what it means? Is that who a martyr is? Not necessarily, not necessarily dying by creating violence in the world, but dying because you believe in something that you believe strongly. You believe strongly about a particular thing. So that's and you are living by the tenets of the faith. You have not created any disruptions in society, yet there are people who will kill other persons for the faith, or will die for the faith because you don't want to. There are things that you don't want to do. So you have to look at it in those ways. When you look at martyrdom, martyrdom is an interesting idea. Okay, so but nothing is wrong with promoting one's faith, but dying for the faith is another issue. But not all persons would promote acts of terrorism. There are those who are peaceful in their acts, but we're not going down. That's not necessarily the discussion right now. The discussion is looking at the idea of the importance of looking at Caribbean thought in terms of looking at how people relate, and the fact that people relate in particular ways. Making popular what was the monopoly of life is what can make it. And so there are people over time who privilege a particular position. And if you study history from the first man through the development of Western civilization, from the Greco-Roman, from looking at the Odyssey and Homer's Odyssey, if you look at that, then what you find is a situation where man try to privilege themselves. So, but you find yourself in the 21st century. From that, you find yourself in the 21st century. You come to the 21st century. And what pertains in the 21st century? What's happening in the 21st century? Okay, so those are some of the things you want to explore. But we've gone off on a tangent. And I want to wrap up the final hour, giving you guys a chance to finish giving us, introducing yourselves and what you hope to achieve from this class. And finally, also, when you, if you have an idea, you throw an egg against the wall, it doesn't break, it doesn't fall. Okay. If you have an answer for me, let me know. Okay. Now, so I know where are we? Sean. I have Sean. I'm seeing Sean. I'm seeing Mary. Sean, you throw an egg against the stone. It doesn't break. It doesn't fall. How come? Sean, are you there? Excuse me. Sean, are you there? Mary.
Sir?
Yes, go ahead. Welcome to the class.
You too.
Egg against a stone. It's a wall. It doesn't break, it doesn't fall. How come?
So if you throw an egg to a wall,
Yes.
maybe that wall is cushioned with maybe sponge. So the egg would not break and somebody catch the egg so it don't fall.
Yes.
That's my idea. Because if you throw a raw egg to a wall, the egg is fragile, the shell is fragile, so it's going to break. So you see that wall is going to be cushioned with sponge.
Yes.
So when the egg hit the wall, somebody catch the egg so it don't fall.
Yes.
That's my idea.
Oh
Mary,
my! Richard left us. I'm sorry, and I wanted him to speak to the class before he ran. Anyways, all right. So now tell us, Mary. Tell me something about why is it that what is it you hope to achieve in Caribbean Thought, or what is it you're doing at
Okay, I'm Mary. I'm a first year theology student, and my quest is for more knowledge. And doing the course Caribbean, well, it's the first I heard about Caribbean Thought, but running through the course outline, then this course will help me to understand more about the problems that we face. Not only in the Caribbean, but other adjoining countries, and the challenges that we have and how we can deal with them.
Beautiful. I have a question, Mary. What are some of the challenges that we face?
What are some of the challenges? So yes. We know that the Caribbean was once enslaved by colonial, so yeah, that is one of the problems. And then we would know the impact these challenges have on us today.
So okay, so Mary, you said colonialism. You said colonialism poses problems for the Caribbean. Okay.
What was the problem for the
colonialism? You said colonialism poses problems for the Caribbean.
Yes, because those challenges that was before still have an impact on us to even today.
How so?
Also, well, I did not go much in depth in it, but from thinking, remember our foreparents were enslaved. They have their own rules and stuff that they hand down on us.
Yes.
So some of those still follow us today. It's still a challenge for us.
And that's good. That's what I'm talking about. You just used the word. You said thinking. Word. Yeah. And this course is a thinking course. So that's good. So those are some of the questions I will ask. You will say something and I'll ask you a question. I might ask you, what is the impact of that? What is the consequence of that? What is the consequence of that? What is the effects of that? So I made some of those questions. And so that's very important. But
Yeah.
so much, Mary. All right, who is next? Sean.
Okay, sir.
Well, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate that. Let's, Sean.
Good night, Sir Mackenzie.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're calling me. I stepped out for a little bit.
Yes. You're next. You throw an egg against the wall, it doesn't break, it doesn't fall. How come?
I'd have to think about that somewhere.
Really? By the way, Richard Beckford has joined us, and I really did not want Richard. I wanted Richard to talk to the class.
It doesn't fall, it doesn't break. It doesn't break, it doesn't fall. How is that?
Sir, what's the question again?
You throw an egg against the wall, it doesn't break, it doesn't fall. How come?
It does. You throw it against the wall, it doesn't break. It doesn't fall.
And the wall is made of sponge. And if they throw it against they catch it. Somebody catch it.
Sir, it was a dream.
Jessica.
Sir, it was a dream, sir.
Who said it was a dream?
Sean, sir.
Okay, no, that's not I don't think it was a dream. Jessica, you have your hand up. Go ahead. Okay, there are several people who have their hands up. I see Tamar.
Are you hearing me, sir?
I see Tamar. Don't speak yet, but the thing is, hold on, guys. Sean was on the floor and he was introducing himself. When Sean finishes, I'm going to ask Richard to quickly speak because I know he has to run. Richard is a very good friend of mine. I'm happy to have him in the class visiting. I would love for him to share quickly and give a short word. And then I'm going to be back with the rest of us. Sean, finish with what you were saying.
Yes, sir. Good evening, colleagues. My name is Sean Reed. I'm third year student. I just for this class, I just want to explore and interact with the dynamics and the different perspectives that help to shape who we are in today's society. We cannot hide from a little bit of Greek, a little bit of Roman, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Slavery, all of these things, from a historical perspective to where we are now. In Jamaica, we have a motto that says, out of many, we are one people. And it's an indication of how we are shaped in today's society. So I'm just here to interact with the various perspectives and, to add to what we can do to have our own identity in some respect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sean, out of many, we are one. What is your understanding of that? You said out of many, we are one. That's your Jamaican motto. What is your understanding of that?
For me, it's all about our background and how diverse we are that has led us to where we are now. So we're both mentally shaped and how we interact as a people to where we are today. And it's not just shaped by quote unquote one race or anything like that. It's shaped on various dimensions. So that's how I view it.
Okay. So we are out of many different backgrounds, we are one. You say we are one. What is the challenge of that? If I were to ask you, do you have a problem with that statement? If you were to look at it, is that
really is at the end of the day, as Jamaicans, as Caribbeans, who are we really?
It says out of many, we are one. So we are one people. But doesn't that pose a problem for individuality? Because if I were to ask you, what is the ultimate of all things? What is the ultimate of all things? You have to answer that, but that's going to be a question I will ask in this class. What is the ultimate of all things? And I might say to you, the ultimate of all things is that we live as one in reality with all of our individuality. Because a man once said, Kierkegaard, and Kierkegaard, K-I-E-R-K-E-G-A-A-R-D, Kierkegaard, said, once you label me, you negate me. One of the things that we do in Caribbean thought is also this issue of identity. Because as I have said in a recent writing that I did, I talk about, what was it called? The Congo and the black position. Oh, neoliberal globalization, the Congos, and hybrid identity. So I do a podcast. By the way, I'm going to tell you guys a lot of the discussions that we have. I have a podcast. We did some of the discussions that I've taken on the podcast. In fact, the next podcast that will be published, which will be tonight, you will hear me having a deep discussion with Professor Emeritus Dr. Martin Oppenheimer about neo-capitalism, neoliberalism, Pharisicalism, and the bureaucratic phenomenon. That's a part of Caribbean thought in the global north. Okay, I have a sit down with him, and it's going to be part of the second book, which will be out soon. But I talk about those things, very important. Okay, so I say to you, Sean, out of many, we are one. And I say to you, what is the ultimate of all things? And I hope you're making notes, guys. And this class, I think we are recording. What is the ultimate of all things? The ultimate of all things is that we become one with reality in all of our individuality. But if the ultimate of all things that we become one with reality in all of our individuality, now, what does that mean to the Jamaican motto, out of many we are one? Is there a, say for example, and let me tell you why I brought this up. We had a big debate in New Jersey. We had a big family thing some time ago, Thanksgiving, and I had a major. It was so intense. We had a major debate in Jersey Shore with my family and a group of intellectuals. We were arguing about, was it Spice? Spice had done something. She was going to perform somewhere. And I actually responded in an article about this too. You know, I write a lot. By the way, the first thing we should have done when we come to the class was to ask you guys, is there anything going on in the newspapers? That's what the first thing we could, moving forward, the next class we have, the first order of business is that we're going to go into, I'm going to ask each of you to lift up something that you have read in the newspapers, the Jamaica Observer, the Jamaica Gleaner, or some Caribbean journal. I'm going to ask you something like that, okay? To share a comment, to comment on a major news or a major issue that's happening in the Caribbean. So each of you will have at least every class 5 minutes to lift up something that's happening in society and to comment on it, okay? And you may also want to comment on it in relation to an ideology or to a school of thought, principle. Yes, you might want to do that. Okay, but Spice said something. Said she was going to perform somewhere, and there was a problem. And she said, if I want to perform. Oh, are you guys hearing me? We lost connection, and I kept talking and talking and talking. Oh my God, this is ridiculous. But I think I'm back. I think the guys can hear me. Welcome back, guys. So anyways, I asked you some questions about what is the ultimate of all things. If Jamaica, say for example, Philadelphia, let me tell you about Philadelphia. They said that Philadelphia is the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. But lately they said that we haven't been seeing the love and the affection. We haven't been seeing the love. Where is the love? Yeah, we are Philadelphia, and in Philadelphia, it says, oh, it's a city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Where is the brotherly love and the sisterly affection? Out of many, we are one. You know, and they said, are we truly one? But what does this oneness mean? Does it mean that, does it mean that there is no individual anymore? What does that speak to? What does it say about the individual? What does it speak about assimilation? What does it speak about what Kierkegaard was saying? Once you label me, you negate me. What, you know, those are some of the questions I'm telling you, when those are some of the questions you want to ask yourself, and you come to a conclusion. You ask yourself those questions. Why am I thinking like this? Did my mom and dad put me up to this? While you know, but those are some of the questions you want to challenge yourself. Okay. All right, but Sean, so I want to thank you, Sean, for that. And it was quite interesting. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now, it's 8:21. Let me take a break and ask Richard to invite Richard Beckford, Professor Richard Beckford, Reverend Richard Beckford, a very good friend of mine. And you know, I'm part of the reason I'm at JTS teaching is because of Richard Beckford. Okay, so kudos to him, and welcome aboard. Welcome to the class, Richard. And I hope you can visit us as regularly as well. Welcome to the class. And is there anything that you would like to share with the class and with all of us?
Yourself so that we can get fully acquainted with each other. Well, not we, because I'm not a part of the course. I'm just dropping into what's going on, but so that you can get other. I think he's coming back in. Reverend Mackenzie, are you back?
Yes, yes. I was talking. Everything was working. I saw everybody, and I was talking. But apparently you guys weren't hearing me, and I actually saw you guys and everything. But
yeah.
Hearing me.
Yeah, no, we weren't. Well, I hand back over to you, sir.
No, but go ahead. Welcome. I don't know if you guys heard what I said earlier, because actually I spoke for about 8 minutes, and then I realized nobody was responding. I was still logged in, but for some reason it created I think it's an IP address issue. I'm not sure what happened, but I saw all of you. My thing was working, but for some reason you were somewhere else. But welcome back, guys. I spoke for 10 minutes just now. 10 minutes or 8 minutes, trust me. And then I realized nobody was listening to me. And for some reason they had created a shadow image of the Zoom link, which maybe because we are in different places, I'm not sure what happened. But Richard, welcome aboard. So I had said that you're one of the reasons why I'm at JTS teaching this, and I started teaching this course. So thank you so much, sir. And I would like you to address the class. I don't know what you had said before, but is there anything that please? I would love for you to address the class.
Well, I wasn't saying much, but I kind of figured you were talking, and I kind of figured that was happening.
Yes, so I apologize about this, guys. But I have I think because I have a lot of application running in the background. So
got you.
But any charge to the class?
Well, just to say good evening to the students. I think you have a facilitator for this course that has a wealth of knowledge, and it's not knowledge that is only located in one discipline. Reverend Mackenzie is a lifelong learner, and since I've met him at JTS, a batchmate of mine, we at that time recognized that he's one that gives serious attention to scholarship. So I know that you all have a lecturer who I would say for the next 15 weeks, suck him dry. What I mean is get all that you can from him in terms of his thoughts, particularly as it relates to the course under review. He's a strong advocate for the Caribbean people, those who are located within the region and the diaspora. Is a strong advocate for us to be vocal on the global scale And as he said earlier, being global in a local space. He's very strong on that, looking at it from a post-colonial perspective. And I think that will help us quite a bit, and the various disciplines. We have several students who are here from the social work discipline, the guidance and counseling discipline, and
yes, I like that.
Yeah, and the students will be engaging people within a society that is rapidly changing and is rapidly influenced by the North Atlantic. And so it is critical that we understand the context that we're in. And I know Rev is going to take you down the road to explore what Caribbean is. And one of my challenges with us as Jamaicans is that we're quite insular. And when we speak of Caribbean, we speak only of Jamaica. And those who are in Kingston only speak of Jamaica only in terms of Kingston.
Yes.
But the Caribbean is a huge geographical space. And as you said earlier, is a diaspora.
Yes.
There's a diaspora outside of the geographical region that continues to think Caribbean.
Yes.
And I think we should allow ourselves to expand the boundaries of our thought processes. Whatever field you're in, whether you're a social worker, whether you're a theologian or a biblical scholar, a counselor, you and I have to expand our thought processes on beyond the boundaries that we have set for ourselves, because the world is right now, those boundaries have been shattered. And so Jamaica is influenced not merely by a Jamaican culture, but a Jamaican influence by a culture outside of the walls of our country. So, I'm excited about this course. I won't be here every Friday. I'm excited about the journey, and I'm excited about the facilitator you have. You guys have to keep tabs on Reverend Mackenzie, because he has so much that he has to share. So,
I am telling you, man. Yes.
And he'll engage you, but great gentleman to have. And you ask for a charge. That's my charge, really, just to engage you, engage the boundaries beyond our Jamaican context. My field of expertise is that of biblical theology, and reading the scriptures in a Caribbean context at this point in time has to be done not in a way that was done 30 years ago. It has to be done in a way now where the knowledge you're gaining within your particular field is able to intersect with the knowledge that a culture or cultures had gotten within the scriptures close to 2,000 to 3,000 years ago. Strike the parallels, see the parallels, and see, and speak to those who are theologians and Bible people. See the parallels and see what kind of, how you can engage those scriptures with the context now. But those who are not Bible and theology students, who are social workers, who are counselors, what is critical is, I use a biblical term, is an exegesis of the culture. Is an exegesis of the culture, right? And so when you hear a Reverend Mackenzie, next class, the first half of the class, I want to hear what you guys have to say about what is happening within the society. What have you read? what are you reflecting on? Because when you sit to talk to people, whatever discipline you're in, you're engaging a culture broader than their issue, but it is affecting their current reality. And so that is critical for us to pick apart the cultural nuances that exist. And that's for all vocations. So those are my few words in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
And we didn't even pray when we started, so I'm so sorry, guys. I know, and this is a theological seminary. We should have begin with prayer, but we can end with prayer as well. But I mean, this is the beginning of the course. But thank you so much for those encouraging words. And Richard Beckford will be back in the class. I didn't include him as yet because I didn't reach out to him as to see the availability to be a guest when we talk about religious consciousness or Caribbean theology, because we also visit Caribbean theology in this class, although I know you guys probably do theology and probably learn a lot more theology, but we touch on it a little bit. And so we will hope to have him sometime in March when we pick up the topic looking at this religious consciousness. And looking at, just so you know, we talk about religious consciousness, we're also talking about Rastafarianism. You know, I understand that the Muslim culture, the Muslim religion is also growing in Jamaica. We want to, you want to look at that. We didn't look at the syllabus yet, but some of the books that we're going to be looking at is Development and Underdevelopment, Latin America's Political Economy, written by James D. Cockcroft, Andre Gunder Frank. Andre Gunder Frank is the real deal. He's really good. And Dale L. Johnson. Dale L. Johnson, I believe he's Jamaican, and he wrote this book. And there is this also book called, but this is a book, it looks at dependence and underdevelopment. And one of the things you might hear me say, what kind of economy does Jamaica have? Jamaica has, and I probably shouldn't even answer the question, probably you guys should answer it. But I used to say dependent capitalism. We're a dependent capitalist country. Notice the word dependent. Dependent is the adjective that describes the kind of capitalism. Okay? So capitalism is the noun, but what kind of capitalism? Dependent capitalism. So there are people who say, Jamaica is a capitalist country. What do you mean by it's a capitalist country? Okay, we will delve into that some more. But by the way, looking at the socio-political economics of a particular country is also understanding the society. Okay? Looking at how the economic arrangement, how the society is arranged economically, will also speak to the dynamic or the relationship that exists between people, okay? Or whether between people within a particular society, within Jamaica, or within a region, the Caribbean, or within the global South as against the global North, and then there's the world, okay? And so I talk about that at length in the book, but looking at dependent capitalism. We are dependent, but with some amount of a capitalist structure that's based on hard work and labor and privilege. The capitalism is about profit. The profit for who, what, where, and when. Okay? And so society is set up in such a way that would determine profit for who, where, what, and when. That's why, as I say to you, you always ask questions in your life, especially in academics. That's part of critical thinking. We talk about capitalism, about profit, but profit for who, what, where, and when? What questions are not being asked? What questions are not being, what is not being said? That is that is how we approach this particular subject. Okay, so that's where looking at how society is arranged and structured, and who benefits and against who don't benefit. And then again, I think I made some notes recently. When you study the Black society, when you study the Caribbean society, this is what you will get: sports, politics, and immigration. When you study Caribbean society, there's a question that I think I wanted to ask. I think I have it right. I wrote a note earlier. Please let me have it. Please let me have that note. Very important note that assertions.
assertions. What assertions do I have about Caribbean? What assertions are assumptions? Okay. And assertions are usually based on anecdotal evidence. Anecdotal because it's not studied fully. Okay. It's an inference that one academic inference, but it's not. It's an assertion because it has not been studied and gone through certain the process and rigors. So it's an assertion means it's an anecdotal evidence from inference, from by just looking at patterns and shapes and so on. So what are the assertions about Caribbean? And I say the Caribbean continue to provide a view of the Black position in the world. Again, the Caribbean continue to provide a view of the Black position in the world. And if I were to ask you, what comes to mind with Caribbean? I said a place of dependency, probably. Beauty, divorced from the people. Now, you guys have to read my latest article in the Gleaner, and you guys have to read my latest article in LinkedIn, the Neoliberal Commentary, because I speak to this, and also the podcast, the Neoliberal podcast, and I also speak about this issue about immigration. And I actually, there is a, but I wasn't going to talk about it until we deal with immigration, but I do a quiz about many people when they travel. The only way when travel happens, look at when travel happens, you have to look at it. When travel happens from the global south, and by global south, I mean formerly called third world or developing, and now we're called global. It's politically correct to say global south. So when travel happens from the global south, when people from the global south emigrate and go to the global north, post-industrial country, former colonial mass, when that happens, we look at let's turn it over. When travel happens from the global north to the global south, what do they say? How it is characterized? Oh, that's tourism mistake. Yes? But when travel happens from the global south to the global north, what do they say is happening? It's determined as, it's usually viewed in what way? Not as tourists, it's viewed as people seeking refugee. People seeking asylum, or they're seen as refugee, or they're escaping some reality. And usually the reality is not necessarily economic when it is mentioned in the public. It's usually the country from which these people come from, the global south, is usually demonized by the very same people, because that is what society has determined. That in order for people from the global south to come to the global north, then they have to come seeking, the only way they can get entrance is through applying for some asylum, like what's going on in El Paso, Texas, and what happened at the border today. But this is very important, looking at it when you look at it, trying to position and understand Caribbean. Look at how travel takes place. Okay. It's easier for somebody from an Anglo-Saxon country, a white Anglo-Saxon country, to travel. It's just recently that they now are requiring visas. But before that, if you look at travel between a post-industrial country or between the global north, if you're Anglo-Saxon, it's different. It's the determination, the adjectives and the adverbs. Language is important, and we're going to talk about that. Language is important, communication is important. Again, remember, life is about people, how people relate. It's facilitated by communication, and that communication is to make popular what was the monopoly, Communication is set up in a certain way to continue a particular privilege or to continue a particular dynamic in the world, which facilitates the Black position, And I said to you just now, if you study the Caribbean and its peoples, Black and brown peoples in the world today, they continue to provide a view of the Black position in the world, place of dependence, place of Black. And if you were to study other Black and brown peoples in the global north, in a post-industrial, like the US, and a lot of and I live in Philadelphia, and there are a lot of sections that's dominated by Jamaica. There's some sections that's primarily Caribbean people, and they live in certain pockets and certain areas, So the problem of Caribbean, so whatever problem that they go through, we're affected by that too, because the Caribbean, there is a connection between the post-industrial countries, especially that of the US and the UK,
And okay, so this is very important. So I say to you, the Caribbean, when you study the Caribbean closely, you understand the Black position. I was making a story. I came to the US and I said, what am I going to study? Oh, I'm going to study liberal studies, then a master of liberal arts. And I did it. And I studied neoliberalism or globalization because I said I wanted to understand. Here am I in the US. I need to understand why is it that there is so much wealth and so much poverty. But then I realized there is pockets of poverty. But the pockets of poverty, who are these people who are poor in the US, in the global north? And why do they not, how is it that they look so much like the people in the Caribbean? They look like the people in the Caribbean. The socio-economic issues that you find Black and brown peoples experience in a post-industrial country. And then you look in the Caribbean, you say, wow, wait. You look at Harlem with culture. And you look at, you study peoples in the global, and then you look what's happening in the Caribbean. And you find a similarity in terms of their language, their tongue, their experiences that they go through. So it speaks to the Black position, the Black and brown position in the world. And then you study history, but not just history, the foundations. And then one of the class, if you go to my website, www.neoliberal.com, I say to you about Haiti. By the way, we have 3 guests that will be coming to our class. Professor Emeritus, Dr. Martin Oppenheimer. He is the chairman of my dissertation, and he's also contributing. He's also writing this second book with Neoliberal Globalization. He's a distinguished professor. Written several books and so on and so forth. He will be speaking with us. You can type him up, but he's really distinguished. There's also the president, the executive director for the International Justice on Haiti, which is part of the United Nations. It's a United Nations international organization that's run by Brian Concannon. He's going to join us. We start talking about the Cuban and the Haitian Revolution and Haiti and so on and so forth. And then we have John Anthony Castro. John Anthony Castro is running for president. His brother ran for president. He's a contributor to the podcast, the Neoliberal podcast, and he is an advisor to the Neoliberal Corporation. We give God thanks for that. But I ring his hand, I got him to come in because we're going to be talking about American penetration in the Caribbean and what that means. And we're going to talk about American politics and all of that in one of the classes that he's going to come and present. And you will get to ask these people questions. You're going to be able to, you can ask them, they're going to probably speak for maybe 20 minutes, and then you can ask them any question you want to ask. Okay? So, and of course, you're going to have Reverend Richard Beckford, who will be coming to the class, and Reverend Hewitt Holmes. So both of those persons. We have 5 guests that will be joining us. Reverend Richard Beckford, Reverend Hewitt Holmes, and of course 3 from the US, Brian, Marty, and one other, who was the other, Brian Marty, and John Castro. John Castro is a big deal. John Castro is a multi-millionaire, and I got him to, and the good thing about John Castro is that he's a first-generation American. His parents are from Mexico, and now he's a multi-millionaire running an international organization, and he is a supporter of the Neoliberal Corporation, guys. And we got him to speak to the class. Pick their brain, okay? Pick their brain, challenge them, engage them, and I told them that you guys, so you can look forward to that. There's another thing that I wanted to look forward to. Let me see if I could bring this up. Let's go. This. And then let's bring up this. There we go. Now we are you guys seeing the course outline?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Great.
sir.
So this is the course outline, and it says 3 hours, 42 contact hours is 42 hours, whatever. Friday 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Notice the motto that I may know God, and I might make God known. People in the class who may be offended by the word Him. So I'm going to use an inclusive word to know that I may know God and that I might make God known for persons who might be offended by using the dominant masculine term. But for those of us who are not offended by that, we can use Him. Now, this course focuses on and explores the diverse currents of Caribbean thought, which have influenced the development of Caribbean societies, from colonialism to independence and beyond. It traces the history of resistance and examines the quest for equality and the challenge of defining Caribbean identity within this post-colonial and neoliberal globalized world. Neo means new, liberal means free. So in its very raw, rudimentary definition, neoliberal is really talking about a free world, a liberalized world. But liberal means has always meant free, but neoliberal is new free. It's a new way of imposing a particular system in the world. So, right, moving away from post-colonialism. So the word post means you're moving away from colonialism. Now you're into a different world. It's a new kind of world. So the world is no longer built on control anymore. So it's post-colonial. We are moving away from control and dominance in that sense. So now a global world with free market, no borders. Of course, we say it's a facade. Let's move in right along. The quest for equality and the challenge of defining Caribbean identity within this post-colonial and neoliberal globalized world, not just within the geographic sense, but also in terms of a diasporic sense. Now, it challenges the students to develop and express their own critical thinking as a Caribbean people within a unique way that helps the world to realize further the hope of a free, independent Caribbean that is bursting with hope and opportunity. By the way, Nakino wrote an article in the Gleaner, and I asked, that's one of the things that you guys can do. If you write an article, a letter to the Gleaner, and it's published, that's great. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to talk about it. That's something that you guys can do. You get points for that. Okay. So we had a discussion in the last class. Is there any hope for the Caribbean? When you start to study this course, you're going to be uncomfortable. I'm like, oh my God, it's all negative, nothing positive. Okay. But this course is particularly set up in a way to make you uncomfortable. Okay? To make you uncomfortable. But so in a sense, challenge your thinking. But it provides opportunity. The course understands that it requires that students begin to critique and explore their own thinking in deeply esoteric and critical ways that deconstructs history and philosophy. Notice I use the word that deconstruct. One of the reasons why I start to write, I write a lot and I blog and I do a lot of writing. And I'm finished with the second book, but it's going to be published by a mainline publisher, a hybrid publisher, because it's going to be by a hybrid publisher. We're going to delay it. The second book will be delayed, and several other people will contribute on the second book. So that is delayed, but the course it requires students to begin to critique and explore their own thinking in deeply esoteric ways that deconstruct history and philosophy. I was making the point that you will, at the end, you will create your own Caribbean thought, leading to a Caribbean academic journal of young academics and future scholars. Let me read it again. I give God thanks for David Pearson. Every day, let me tell you, man, that guy, can I use the word I love him? He is amazing. He has single-handedly facilitated my writing ability. He came to the class, or ethics class one day, and said, guys, If you write a letter to the Gleaner, get it published, I'm going to give you an extra grade, 5% or something like that. And I'm like, whoa, anything for extra grade. And I write. I was writing like crazy. But he said something. He talked about how our history is written for us. There are many things that I'm learning that I didn't know, that like maple syrup or there's some syrup that was produced by some mix, what they call that, the maple syrup that we have in the maple mix. For years we thought it was another group of people that created it, but then later on we learn in history who is responsible for it. People deliberately hide history. People are deliberately made to be dumb so that those who think that they have certain privileges can continue to maintain their privilege. That is why, I'm writing, my third book is entitled Position, Power, Privilege, and Status, looking at the foundations of human society. The assertion is that looking at privilege and power strategies poses problems for human progress. Again, power, and it's because we believe that power, this is the understanding. Society is, you get up in the morning, you see a tree outside. Well, some trees are not man-made, so let's use some. You get up and you see the sea. Is that made by something? By someone? Okay? That's one thing. But then you go and look at the car, you look at things that created, who gives it purpose, and so on and so forth. But the point I'm trying to make here is that we have to write our history, or the history will be written for you. And it will be taken over as somebody else's idea. And so that is why it got me writing. And I invite you to start thinking about your own. This particular course will help you to think a lot and helps to deconstruct history. So I said, I am incorrect. I said at the end, you will create your own Caribbean thought leading to a Caribbean academic journal of young academics and future scholars. This is what we're hoping. This is what I'm hoping to do with this. Every time we have a class like this, your final research papers, you're going to be groups of probably 2 or 3, depending on how large the class is. I will know by next week, and I'm going to send you all emails and so on, so you will. And by the way, just continue to go on the platform, the JTS Intranet and so on, because I'm going to be posting up a lot of assignments and stuff. I'm going to be putting you guys in groups of 3, and the essay, the final essay is actually going to be, it's going to be group work. The essay is going to be group work. So you guys will, we will have to write 20 to 25 pages, and it's going to be 3 persons per essay, because since we're doing a particular project, we're going to, if your essay stand out, we're going to publish that. We're going to include that into a SAGE journal that includes, which is about, we're trying to develop an academic journal of young academics and future scholars within a Caribbean perspective. So if your essay stands out, so that's what we're hoping for. Some people have their hands raised. I'm going to wrap up real quickly. Give me 2 minutes. The course, by the way, I said the course will make you estranged from self, but it's geared towards getting you out of your bubble and to consider issues that will make you uncomfortable. The West, I'll move on from that. That means moving from the local and turning to the global, and we are global citizens. And also we have to think about competitiveness. The course surveys the history and philosophy of the Caribbean and ways in which Caribbean has emerged as a society. Notice earlier I used the word hybridity. Hybridity, write that word down, it's very important. Okay, because I have written that we have a hybrid identity. When we speak about hybrid, what is hybridity? Hybridity in its raw, simplistic, in the most simple ways, is mixture. Hybridity or hybrid culture, mixed culture. By the way, if you go onto the platform, earlier, the first week of this course is that talked about before the Europeans came, looking at the natives, the Taino people, the Arawak. You guys can read that on your own You guys should have an understanding as to that. And if you go to Hellshire Beach or Hellshire, way up to the top of Hellshire and make a left, don't make a right, make a left, there's Arawa Caves. You guys can visit that. And I lived in Hellshire, so I am very familiar with the area. And there's a lot of caves in that area. And they still have some of the markings. Okay, so when you talk about the Caribbean, you have to also think about this issue of hybrid identity. First of all, who was here before the Europeans and before the black people and before African American, the Africans came here? There was a whole culture and a whole life, okay? But that particular culture is divorced from the people that currently live there now, that currently live in the Caribbean. The people who live in the Caribbean, that's why they talk about the new world. It's a new people because the other set of people have committed, were wiped out. Yes, they were wiped out. But then you talk about, okay, what is the relationship between the people who were there and the people who are there now? Is there any relationship? Okay, how did the natives who lived in and what the Caribbean was before it is now? What is the relationship with the past and the present? Because we talk about the diaspora, the Caribbean diaspora, but what about the African diaspora? Because the Caribbean in and of itself could be considered the diaspora in and of itself. The people from and so you could speak of that, but then Caribbean is big. It's that you have the Latin Caribbean, you have French Caribbean, you have English Caribbean, and so you have an interplay of dynamism. And what happened? A lot of the elites, they stayed in Barbados. What happened in Jamaica after independence and slavery ended is that it was kind of different in Jamaica. You didn't have a lot of the in Barbados. A lot of mulattoes live in Barbados. In Jamaica, it was different. But that's what you look at Caribbean society, and you are studying and reflecting, and you're looking at how is it that we came to be, and what's the relationship that we have with the past. And the past, and we're talking about a Caribbean past. What was the past before the 1600s or before the 1400s? What happened before the 1400s in the Caribbean? And the people who currently live there, who have this hybrid identity and this hybrid culture, yes? And then how are these people today? What's happening with these people today? So this is important, and that's why I talk about neoliberal globalization. The Congos and the Black position, because as you know, the Congos was a colony of Belgium and France. Again, it was a colony of Belgium and France. And then you can study what's happening because in the Congos. But almost all of Africa was dominated. Why was Africa dominated? To the point many of these people were transplanted to the Caribbean. Okay? So those are some of the questions you may want to ask yourself to quickly wrap up here. The course surveyed the history and philosophy of the Caribbean, in which the Caribbean has emerged as a society in the shadow of colonialism and emergence of neoliberal globalism. This way. Notice this is a very important point, real quickly. I know you guys, but you have to go. The course surveys the history and philosophy of the Caribbean and the ways in which the Caribbean has emerged as a society in the shadow of colonialism and the emergence of neoliberal globalization. Because when these societies became independent, as they speed towards nationalism or a sovereign country, a nation, what are they met with? Globalization. So you wonder, wait, these countries only got independence so that globalization can happen, so that these countries can now penetrate them again in a different way. Globalization and the way we think about economics was changing at the time. Yes? So I'm like, wait, so these countries get independence in the 1960s, and as soon as they get independence, what's happening? Globalization is happening. And they are behind. But yet still they're signing up for an international trade arrangement to be part of the global market. But guess what? They can't compete with people who are already ahead. But yet still they're signing agreements to be part of this global neoliberalized world, as if They started at the same point with these post-industrial countries. We'll talk about that some more. It examines the central ideological current of 20th century political thought in the region and covers topics as nationalism, pan-Africanism, socialism, Marxism, feminism, democratic socialism, neoconservatism, neoliberalism, globalization, deconstructivism, critical race theory. Critical race theory is important. I like critical race theory. We don't deal with critical race theory a lot because they say it, because you hear that, oh, Jamaica don't have racism, but we do. But not in the sense that we have it, not but probably it's a different way, but we have in terms of how the races or how people relate to each other. But probably it's not necessarily in terms, it's racial, but you look at it in terms of how you look at discrimination. You look at your black and brown, but brown there's still an issue of colorism. Color is still important, okay? But of course, and educational opportunities, so on and so forth. But critical race theory, strategy, and the foundations of knowledge and the hegemony of faith. Now, the reason why we have to look at critical race theory is not just an internal issue. It's not just what's going on in the local. Critical race theory, you have to look at it in the world. You have to look at it in terms of the world. So people might say in Jamaica, oh, we don't have problem with race. But please remember that it's not, the Jamaica as a whole, the dominant race is black, okay? And if you talk about blackness in the world, what happened to black people in the world? Yes? Wherever they live, they experience lack. Remember, so I said the assertions, Caribbean continue to provide a view. So the assertions are crime and violence, yes? Lacking in innovation, beauty, but it is divorced from the people, the tourism, from the tourism they're cornering on. By the way, if you listen to the podcast I just did on sports, politics, and immigration, I talk about immigration a little bit, and I share an article and I did about Biden's immigration problem. Okay, so those are some of the things that you have to contend with and consider. So when you say, "Oh, we don't deal with race," race is not an issue, but the country as a whole, wherever you have a preponderance of a particular color, then the dynamic or the position of the dynamic in the world that places that particular color at a particular place in position will happen. Say, for example, you look, wherever you find black people or brown people, there is always what? Dependency, beauty divorced from the people, servanthood, or social security and welfare, lacking in innovation or educational outcomes are poor, crime and violence or relative deprivation. But I wrote at the bottom, little but tallow. Little but tallow. There's something, the indomitability of the black and brown man. By the way, there is something, and I'm wrapping up here. There is I wrote in the epilogue of my book, and if you go to LinkedIn, I also did an article I submitted to Georgetown. I talk about reimagining and reinventing the black man and the black woman, where people like Dana Berry Black, and I'm going to talk about some of these black scholars, and people like who wrote Harlem World, the guy who wrote, John Jackson, who wrote Harlem World, and Dana Berry Black and this other, the transatlantic, looking at the transatlantic and looking at how people, if you look at scholars, black scholars today, the way in which black scholars are writing about the black experience is different from how they used to write about it. That is why I'm moving away from just having you just look at 12 years of experience, because when you read 12 years of experience, all you're gonna think about, you're gonna feel very bad. It's just, but they're rewriting black history, black scholars here in the US and all over the world. Instead of they're moving away from a victim approach to a hero approach. I'm gonna say that again. Moving away from race to reimagine and reinventing the black man and black woman. Yes? Moving away from the victim. So when you opine, when you imagine the history of the black man and the black woman or the Caribbean, it leaves you feeling victimized. It leaves you feeling depressed. I'm like, wow. But and I'm saying to you, and I say to you, but people are now changing that. Black scholars, you have more black scholars. People are writing now, that's why I said we need more writers. That is why I'm doing this pilot project. That's why I'm telling you guys to write and submit letters to. We need more writers, and not just write. We need more published writers, serious writers to write about these deep things and stuff. Okay, and the more you write, the better you become. I'm telling you that. The more you write, even if you subject-verb agreement sometimes don't match, we might make a few errors. That's fine. You keep at it because, okay, it's a work in progress. You keep improving, and everything is not perfect. It may not be perfect. That is why sometimes I have to be careful about marking hard with these things because you develop, and I'm against intellectualism. I eschew intellectualism. Like Gramsci, if you read the book, The Prison Notebooks, you talk about this intellectualism. Intellectualism was developed, okay, so to keep a certain people within a particular milieu, and keep some people out. Connectionism, okay, this whole issue of connectionism and creating groups and cliques in society at the expense of the other. Good. So we're back. I know I hear some of these. 9:12. Oh my God. Let me hurry up. I need to add this part. I talk about conservatism, some of the topics we're going to be looking at, foundations of knowledge and the hegemony of faith. And imagine hegemony of faith. What is that about? Of course, there's hegemony of faith, as in anything. In fact, sometimes it is faith that supports hegemony, discrimination, and so on and so forth. Faith that supports that, okay? And I talk about some time ago the franchisement of the faith. That doesn't mean that the faith, nothing sets up that people should not embrace faith, but there are people who corrupt it. The issue of corruption, economic inequality, and poverty, we're going to talk with that. You can read the thinkers. I'm just going to skip. One book that we will delve into, we come next week, is this, and it's in the course online. This book, you don't have to buy the book. I'm going to tell you I read a lot, and I'm doing several studies, several projects I'm working on. This is how you will read. When you get a book to read at the academic level, you have a lot of readers. The first thing you do is read the title. You don't have to read an entire book. I'm telling you that. That's one of the things. The first class I did was at University of Pennsylvania. It was a reading class, how to read at the collegiate level. How to read 100 books in 1 week at the collegiate level. That's the first. Okay, the first thing you do is read the front book, title. Then after that, you say, okay, get a sense, because sometimes the title tells you about it. If you read my book is entitled Neoliberal, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. And even how the book is designed speak to globalization. If you look, I don't have a copy of my book, but the globalization, in my book, you have the American flag and the Jamaican flag. On top of the Jamaican flag is a post-industrial country. And it's eating away at the Caribbean, I said. You look at this book, it's called The Wretched of the Earth. And according to Frantz Fanon, he says, today, the post-colonial man is a political creature in every sense. I can't remember. Let me see if I can remember. It's somewhere here. I can read it from. But we're going to take this is part one of the questions. The colonized man, the colonized, underdeveloped man is today a political creature in the most global sense of the term. Again, underdeveloped man is today a political creature in the most global sense of the term. That's a powerful sentence. What does he mean by that? The colonized developed man is today a political creature. Political creature means that he is created political by a political system, yes, in the global sense of the term. Looking at the global stuff, we'll talk about that some more. But so that's this book, and also Homi Bhabha. If you do Caribbean thought, and the courses like this, have to know people. You have to know thinkers. Homi Bhabha is one of the thinkers you have to know. Homi Bhabha she writes the location of culture. You have to know about Frantz Fanon. He is the father of post-colonialism. Okay? talking about colonialism and post-colonialism from the Caribbean. This is Algerian. Algeria was colonized by France, and this guy was really good, man. You're gonna get this book, and it's on the syllabus. I tell you, the front of the book is important, and then all you need, and then you go to the. And by the way, I was telling you this book, The Wretched of the Earth. Who is the wretched of the earth? I tell you, book says it all, and the entire book is about this. So I'm telling you, you don't have to do too much reading sometimes. You just need to read the most important. The front of the book, the content, from start, read the content, study the table of content, guys. Study the table of the foreword. Sometimes people just get a book and start from the introduction. Guys, learn about the author. How does he think? What ideological principles or school of thought guide him? So that then when you read him, you can understand why he make the assertions or come to a conclusion. Yes? So you want to read, not just so you, let me look at this. Called The Wretched of the Earth. By French, who is Frantz Fanon? You want to read up about that guy. So when you get a book, once you can do that, you read up, you learn much about what he's writing about, then you get the gist of it. So that's what you want to do, guys. The title, and then you go to the I don't know if other people are trying to join. And then you go to the content page, and after the content, the foreword, or about the author or whatever, the foreword. Foreword is very important. Some books have preface. You read the preface. The preface is usually the opening. The opening or the abstract will be in the preface. Abstract will be in the preface. That's okay, just so you know. Or the hypothesis, the fleshing out of the hypothesis will be in the preface. And then you read the introduction, and that's it. And then the conclusion, and then the first line of every chapter, and the second line. And we'll talk about that some more, about reading. And I'm going to share with you an article that speaks to reading, collegiate reading. You're going to find that quite interesting. And I'm going to give you a reading assignment. And in the reading assignment, I am going to facilitate a particular kind of reading. I want you to read it the way that I'm asking you to read, okay? I'm going to ask you to identify certain concepts. There are certain concepts. You want to look for the concepts. You want to look for the principle. What viewpoint shapes his conclusion? What methods is he using to, okay? When you read, you ask those questions, okay? What shapes his idea? Where did he go to school? Even when you do eisegesis, or exegesis, sorry. Eisegesis is different from exegesis. Exegesis is a deep internal meaning. Eisegesis, if you want to do exegesis, okay? That's very important. So that when you read, you're doing exegesis really. As theologians and so on, you know exegesis, okay? But as I said to you, you don't have to read the entire thing. But you want to get the pretext and the post-text, or reading about his life and so on. So one of the readings, one of the assignments, one of the things that we will do later on, and you will know about it. We're gonna put that into perspective. By the way, all of you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, and I am so sorry. I went on and on, and we were a little bit behind because of the class. So I apologize about that. And so when we come back to the next class, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself some more. But I also want to use the discussion group in the the online platform to reply to the comments, reply to my post, the welcome and introduction, and you introduce yourselves, create a post introducing yourselves, and what you hope to achieve, and so on and so forth. And that's very important. We want to have a dynamic and interesting conversation with the group, so what we don't get to accomplish here. I want to say that the goals and learning outcomes for this course, I guess we can finish it at that. You have an understanding of the outline of Caribbean history from slavery to colonial period. You understand the impact of that history, understand it and appreciate the influence of key historical and current figures, so on and so forth. We will get back to that. But finally, I said You will submit a final essay paper that is well researched and part of current thinking among young academics towards developing a Caribbean thought journal. You will be able to use digital technology to transmit your thinking. I want to teach you how to do podcasting, and I'm going to give you a free link. So the thing is that I know it's not a communication class, but I want you guys to be able to, not only are we thinking it, but I believe that as Caribbean people, we have to get access to digital technology. We have to be able to leverage technology. I want us to be competitive. I want to teach you everything that, so I get to a point where we can not just think, but we can facilitate, create opportunities to have debates, platforms where we can share our thinking and our ideas, and learn how to use technology to broadcast our ideas and our conversations and so on and so forth. So one of the class, we're going to delve into digital technology, how to leverage technology, social media. I do a lot of that, digital technology. That's what I do. I'm a digital creator in addition to the other stuff I do. Okay, so that's one of the class we're going to do that. We're going to do introduction to podcasting. And you're going to learn how an introduction to that. Just briefly, one class is enough, and you will learn that, and you will find it quite interesting. It's going to be powerful. So podcasting, digital technology, and one other thing, and blogging, podcasting, and digital technology. And I will share with you some tools where you can begin. One of the things I want you guys to do, JTA student body should have a podcast. Yes, where you sit down and talk about Caribbean issues and issues affecting the school. The beauty about podcasting is that the podcast I started in July of 2021 is a top ranked podcast. It's heard in 25 different countries, and it's in the top 5 in the world. And I use it as a platform to promote my work and so on. It has done great. It's doing very well. It's amazing. It transforms you, especially when you starting to do your own thing. And we will talk about that. But this class, I want to leave you with skills when you leave this class. Okay, not just thinkers, but how to create your thinking and promote it. Okay, and not only that, you will have, when you're finished, you will have the phone numbers and contact information for the guests who will be coming to the class. Okay, when you leave this class, you will leave this class better than you came. When you leave this class, you will leave, and that I thought about, you will get skills to do the critical thinking, to tell your story, because I said student learning outcomes. The student on completion of the course will be able to develop their critical thinking and tell their own story. Not just tell it, but utilizing the language of the media of the 21st century, okay? Which is communicate digital technology. Somebody said to me, you know what, we're not as competitive as some of our country. I mean, once you have a phone, you can do a lot. Once you have a tablet phone, it's powerful. But some people, but what do we? So we want to tap into that. We're gonna leave you with skills so that when because you can, people don't understand. There's things that you can do. But and I will talk some more about that. But you will leave this class with the ability to at least be able to start your own podcast. You're gonna leave this class, at least submitted several letters to me, and I will publish some of your work on the Neoliberal post, okay, to share your work. So start developing your writing. Next week, you will know what, for next week, I haven't given you a homework. I haven't given homework for next week as yet, because what I want you guys to do is continue to familiarize yourself with the reading. The reading for this week, I'm going to send it to you. And then your job is to write about what you have read. Okay, just interact with it, and I'm not going to tell you how to write. Just write. Give me a 1 or 2 page. I just want to see how you write, how you think. That's it. Okay, how you write and how you think about any issue that's happening in on the newspapers or a general issue that speaks to the Caribbean. You have that freedom, that latitude, write whatever you want to write. But I just want to see how you write, because as I said, the first week is introduction, introducing you to the topic, to the outcomes, and so on and so forth, and explore where you can get resources As I said to you, if you go to my, I will send you a copy of the audio book, Neoliberalism. I'll also send you copies of other papers and stuff. But for this week, get delve into the outline. Okay. Also visit my podcast, the Neoliberal. I have over 150 episodes. Look at some of the. I think the first couple of episodes in the season, I read the entire preface, introduction of the book, so you can go online. But that's one of the things we have to discuss, how we get access to neoliberalism. But now I don't know if it's in Jamaica, but I think it's at Sangster's bookstore. But a lot of the readings, I have copies of the reading. You can access it by just clicking on the link and it takes you straight there. Others, you may have a problem with that. All right, finally, there's attendance. There are 13 classes that will cover the course material. Your participation is important. This is what I'm going to tell you. You get 50%. People don't usually give 15% for attendance. 15% is a lot, okay? Because attending this course, the class is important, because the last two classes that I've had, there are people who have very bad attendance, even for online class, which I just don't understand. So I am attaching the 15% to this class. Please, so you have to participate in the class, come to the class.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Neoliberal podcast. This special series of the lecture series of the Neoliberal podcast, looking at towards developing a Caribbean thought academic audio journal, and in this particular case, the Caribbean thought class at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, where I am developing and helping to facilitate budding academics. We will pick up tomorrow or later on this week as we get into part 2 of the Neoliberal podcast series looking at the Caribbean Thought lecture. This is the Neoliberal podcast brought to you by the Neoliberal Corporation, serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges through our communication, which is to make popular what was the monopoly. And we encourage you to subscribe for free on any platform, and you can donate to the show by going to https://anchor.fm/the neoliberal/support. What good?